We would need to overhaul the cargo facilities to create a perishable export center, which is geared totally on receiving products at a good temperature, at the required temperature, and maintaining the temperature all the way through, from inspection all the way through to the airline acceptance, the building up of the loads onto aircraft pallets and containers, cartage down to the flight, loading on board the aircraft, and then again at the other side of the destination where the cold chain is maintained. At the moment, we don't see that. We're in a very hot, very harsh environment. The problem with product is if you have a temperature spike, you get condensation and your decay process starts immediately. There's no way you can reverse that. And that is where we have to look at the quality side of the business, which relates back to cost. The situation we are faced with, I think, in Nigeria is the need to do something. Before the private sector will consider an investment, they would like to see the business plan and understand what their return is going to be. In my opinion, we need to go beyond that to some sort of an intervention via a public-private sector partnership, where the supply chain is managed. For instance, in some African countries, they have export grower associations where the farmers actually club together and purchase capacity on the airline flights. They also manage their logistics on ground up until the airport, together collectively. So there's no wasted expense on underutilized vehicles. Everything is well planned and managed in advance, which gives them that cost benefit where they're not wasting their money on those inputs. We need to look at that. Looking at Murtala Muhammad International Airport, it's the biggest cargo center in Nigeria. Exports have grown already because of our markets in West Africa and some consumer goods that go into the Gulf areas and into Europe. But those flights leaving Nigeria are flying three-quarters, half empty. It means that the cost of that rotation from origin to Nigeria and back home is actually paid for by the import cargo. So you can see it's a total interdependent relationship. Whether the public and private sector would want to look at putting together a perishable center, bringing all the stakeholders together into a more streamlined and efficient way of doing business. At the moment, our exports are 7% of our total business. So 93% of our cargo is import cargo. So it is definitely the crunch has come. The days of bursting open warehouses and aircraft with nowhere to park and offload the cargo at this moment are not there. But again, we see that the state is very actively involved in the development of infrastructure.
The Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority has said that recurrent training for pilots is a mandatory requirement, and so airlines must comply with this safety requirement. This statement comes on the heels of the complaints by airline operators that they spend over 55 billion naira on compulsory training for pilots, engineers, and cabin crew annually. Airline operators, who are however miffed over the huge spending, have said the money spent on the training could be halved if the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority allow pilots to train once a year instead of every 6 months, as it is done in some parts of the world. In Nigeria, pilots travel overseas twice a year to carry out simulator training, after which the NCAA will renew their licenses, but without which the regulator body will withdraw licenses. The NCAA insists it must fulfill its obligatory role of ensuring the nation's skies remain safe at all times.
We will not do anything to compromise safety. Training is an essential part of safety. So we consider safety, security before we come to economic.
Still on the local scene, the federal government says it is setting up an interministerial committee on aviation security aimed at providing modalities for training of aviation security officers for improved security at airports across the country. Minister of Interior, retired Lieutenant General Abdurrahman Bello Dambazal, said this when he received the Minister of State for Aviation, Senator Hadi Sirika, in his office. Dambazal emphasized the need to secure the nation's airport and its environs, adding that this is part of border security management. On abuses in the expatriate quota policy, particularly by foreign airlines in engagement of pilots and cabin crew members, where such skills are abundant in the country, General Dambazal noted that appropriate measures will be taken to check such abuses so as to provide employment opportunities for qualified Nigerians. This followed a request by the Minister of State for Aviation, Hadi Sirika, that the Ministry of Interior look into the expatriate quota policy on employment, expressing concern that foreign airlines are recruiting foreign pilots and cabin crew members, whereas such skills and professionals are abundant in Nigeria. The Federal Aviation Administration says Virgin Galactic, the space company belonging to Virgin Airlines owner Richard Branson, has been granted an operating license to fly its passenger rocket ship with the world's first paying service tourist aboard once final safety tests are completed. The unprecedented license covers all operations of Virgin Galactic's 6-passenger, 2-pilot Spaceship Two vehicle, including commercial passenger service, which according to FAA spokesman Hank Price, is contingent on certain terms and conditions being met first. Those requirements include verification of vehicle hardware and software in an operational flight environment, the FAA wrote in an email. The FAA, which oversees U.S. airline service and general aviation, is also the chief regulatory body for commercial space flight in the U.S. The new license will be modified as Virgin Galactic supplies the FAA with additional data from the Spaceship Two flight test program. The company has not yet announced a date for the start of passenger flights, but is selling tickets for a ride aboard Spaceship Two at $250,000 a seat. Commercial service is not expected to debut before 2017. About 700 people have put down deposits for rides that will take them about 62 miles above Earth, high enough to experience a few minutes of weightlessness and see the curvature of Earth set against the blackness of space. Both were employees of Scale Composites, a Northrop Grumman subsidiary based in California that built the program. The spaceship company, a Virgin Galactic sister firm, built a new Spaceship Two, the second in a planned fleet of 5, and took over the test flight program from Scaled. The new ship, dubbed Unity, was rolled out of its hangar on Monday for its first taxi test at the Air and Spaceport. Virgin Galactic plans to fly from Spaceport America near New Mexico. Spaceship Two will be ferried to an altitude of about 50,000 feet by a carrier jet known as White Knight 2 and then released for an independent rocket ride beyond the atmosphere. Spaceship Two is designed to glide back to the ground and land on a runway like a conventional airplane.
When Aviation This Week returns, it's a special report on the ill-fated Malaysian flight MH370. This time, family members of those on board and relatives of crew say no, as authorities say It's time to wind down on the search for the aircraft 2 years after it went down. Do join us again.